Resumes are the hardest thing to consider in the job search hunt phase, especially for entry-level positions. If you watched the last video, you should have already curated your ideal roles based on the industry and at least have 10 available for you to go through. And you have to think about where your resume is going when you send it through. It's often going to an automated system. It might go to a hiring manager, it might go to a recruiter, but it's not going to your technical manager first. That's not happening. Usually it's not happening unless it's a small company. It's not going to happen. And so you have to take that into account, that you need to ensure that your resume is easy to read for the right person. And so we have this first thing you need to know. There's 7 more or 8 more. I don't know. Maybe it's 8 plus 1, a bonus. But you need to consider that. So at the top of your resume, you're going to put a skills section and you're going to list every single tool that is relevant to that job description and or your background in order for them to see at a glance that you have the skills required. And that's why you needed to pull the job descriptions first. You want to make sure the tools that you know are there, or again, I said previously, get a new cert and put it there. And you also want to use subheadings. So on my resume, I have headings for data science, machine learning, sales engineering, marketing, and I put the tools and skills that I have in there as one-word phrases. One word, scikit-learn, PCA, random forest, linear regression, things that I've done multiple times and I can talk about easily. Don't put anything that you don't know. I put marketing tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, A/B testing there. And so you want to put that at the top so they can know, hey, okay, yep, this fits. It was in the job description. It fits. I know it fits. We're going to put her in the potentially follow up with. But they're just trying to get through those 400 people. And so you need to make sure your resume is looking like it's going to get through those 400 people. Like you're better than everyone else. So after that, you're going to format it, and I'll show what I mean in this little nice little space, and I'll put it in the video description too. But you want to put your most relevant, most recent job description at the top. Oftentimes, what I say is if this is your most pertinent one, put the most information there, and the other ones you don't put as much. But you want to go from recent to the last. You don't want to put your education. In tech, oftentimes, no one cares. They care if you can do the job. And so often say put education at the bottom. That's going to be the last thing they're going to be looking at, unless you have this amazing LeetCode code score and you just want to put it in the top corner and you're like in the top percentile of LeetCode code. That's going to get some attention. So you don't want anyone reading a 3-page resume. They're just not going to do it. You want to keep it down to 2 pages. 1 is best, 2 is good. And you don't want to put, if you have multiple jobs in the same time period, you only really need to put 1. You need to put it so that it fills up all the gaps. And that way that will help cut down your resume. But you don't need to put everything that you do, especially if it's not relevant to the job that you're applying for. So you want to put your achievement at your role. So you want to say, I built X and had X outcomes. So on my resume under sales engineering, it was like, I grew company revenue from X to X, or I took an email list from this to this amount with my skills. And so it has those markers to show what I did that was really good. So if you have those things that you can say, you want to put them on there, and you want to say achieve. If last video I talked about my brother who's a course developer, he's made like 4 courses, and his 4 courses is going to again turn into, I did 4 courses for how many students, or even my mom, if I was in her resume, she's been in education 20 years. You want to say, hi, I taught hundreds of kids, and if you can put the number, easy to calculate, these amount of courses over the course of 20 years. And so that really shows and demonstrates your knowledge base, if you have any knowledge base. Even if you're in biology and you say, hey, I wrote this paper, and I attended this many conferences, that looks good. Education at the bottom, again, no one cares. Just put your college, and you can put your GPA, but that's not really a hiring criteria in technology. People with great GPAs are horrible people to work with and don't necessarily know what to do, but they're great students. You want to hyperlink your GitHub to your resume. And this is what I mean, because I've been on the other end of this and I have 400 people to go through, and I want to try to give them attention. If your GitHub is something I have to copy and paste, it's not clickable, I'm likely not about to look at it. I'm just going to put you into, don't have time. And it already doesn't look like the resume is what I'm looking for because you didn't do any of the things that I'm telling you. And so I'm not going to click on it. I have too many people to go through. So you want to make sure your GitHub is hyperlinked to make it easier to shift through. And oftentimes people who put in that much detail to do that actually were the ones that did have the portfolio I was looking for. Not all the time, but often enough. Also, don't send me directly to your GitHub code. And the reason for that is, let's go back to point number 1. hiring managers or recruiters are typically the first people who's going to see your work. So it's better to send them to a write-up of what you have done with a link to your code or snippets of your code there for when the technical manager comes sees it, because they don't understand any code. They're just going to see, oh my goodness, what is all this? Is this even good? I'm not quite sure. But if you give them a write-up of what you did, why you did it, how it was done, then they see how you're thinking, and they say, hey, yeah, this person thinks how we're assuming this role will need to go. So I'm going to put them into the callback pile. So you want to make it simple and easy for them and really have your plan of action lined up. So when I was hiring an intern, there was a few people that I was looking at, but the one I hired was the one that had the best technical explanations, who really seemed like she understood it, and she's been performing well for that startup. So really it does come down to that. Granted, I'm technical, but again, hers was easy to understand. So I knew she could talk to the co-founder of that company who was non-technical. And so I knew she would have those skills. Number 8 is always look for your next role. And just go ahead and take the jobs that are in front of you instead of trying to get your ideal role. I talked about it in the last video. I went freelancing into a corporate role, and I actually didn't have to really, the ones that I got interviews for weren't ones that I had to submit resumes for. At this point, recruiters come to me, they come to me all the time, and I get that. The ones I submitted my roles for were never called back. And I think that comes down to, once you have the right things and people are actively looking for people with your skills, they're going to find you. And this is like a bonus. Yeah, it is 8 plus a bonus. One thing that sometimes works, that actually got me interviewed because I wanted to go a level up. And when you go into like executive level roles, resumes are formatted differently. But one of the things I wanted to do was do that. And so I put on my LinkedIn profile, I had people write recommendations for me, and I put snippets of the recommendations into my resume. It works to bring attention because not everyone has that in their resumes, and it looks really good when you have a verifiable quote from someone who's worked with you before in your resumes. It just stands out. It doesn't work in every industry. It works in some, and that's something to consider, especially if you need to stand out among a lot of applicants and you want to roll. And you want to make sure, again, that it's verifiable. They can go to your LinkedIn and find these things. But mine were people, if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see the recommendation that I've gotten for people and the recommendations I've written for people. And so that is a way to show validation in the marketplace. So this is the end of the resume session. I'm going to put a link to a resume example and somehow figure out how to put it up here in this big space. And please, this video, subscribe if you want to see more data science content. And also in the video description, you'll find a link about the portfolio sprint that I'm going to have coming up. It's really just an opportunity for working industry professionals to spend a week with you during Thanksgiving break, for if you're a student or you can find time off of work or willing to work at night, but to really help you figure out that tailored project that's going to help you land the job in a 1-week plan. And so you'll be going from 0 to 1 really quickly and get something to put on your resume. And so you'll find the details of that below. And also you can book a session with me. With that, I'll find you in the next video.